So welcome again to the Talis Aspire product update for May 2023. My name is David Renfrey. I am the Senior Customer Success Consultant here at Technology for Sage, supporting Talis Aspire. I'm also joined today by my colleague, Scott Gibbons, who is our Head of Product. And so while I'll be steering and going through the slides, if there are any questions that come in the chat as we go, I suspect I'll be directing them to him. So yeah, do drop your questions into the chat as we go, or we will have plenty of time for questions at the end of the session as well. For those who haven't attended a product update before, this is basically our monthly sort of chance to speak to you directly and tell you what we've been working on, what's in the pipeline, and anything else that might be of interest. So with that in mind, let's move straight to the agenda. So what will we be looking at today? We will be looking at recent releases, so things that have been released since the last time we did a product update. And actually, it's been 2 months since the last one, because of course we had our Insight event in person here in the UK in April, so we didn't have one last month. We will also be looking at upcoming releases. So what are we working on at the moment? What can you expect to see in the system in the next few weeks and months? We will be talking to you about our ongoing reviews discovery project and where that is currently at and what we expect to come out of it. We'll be giving you an update on Google Analytics 4. We have mentioned that a couple of times in previous product updates, so we'll be giving you the latest on where that is currently at. We'll be talking a little bit about new staff, so new additions to the TFS team. And then, yeah, as I say, we will leave plenty of time at the end for questions. So first item on the agenda is recent releases and what has gone out since we last spoke to you. So the main thing that's happened since the last time we ran a product update is some of the work we've been doing around LTI 1.3. So just to give you some context, some of you with long memories might remember that we spent a lot of time last summer actually implementing the LTI 1.3, which drives the integration between your learning management system and Talis Aspire. Reasons behind that were improved security and also improved functionality around the rollover process. Now, having said that, some of you identified an issue, particularly when you were using Blackboard, that when you were rolling lists over from one year to the next, or your learning management system, some of the links were not updating as you would expect, particularly if you've been using section links within your learning management system. So what we've been doing in recent weeks is testing various different scenarios, so making sure that whatever system you're on and whichever way you roll it over, that those links will persist in the way that you expect. And that work is now complete. So if you are rolling over both your learning management system and Talis Aspire, you should now be finding that any LTI links you were using with 1.3 are now pointing at the most recent version as expected. There is still a little bit of additional work going on at the moment, which is around a sort of UI change. Scott, I know you told me about this earlier. Can you just remind me and all the attendees of the details of that, please?
Yeah, of course. So effectively, when you roll over with a new update, it will always point to the latest version of the list. So you roll over and all the links will then point to the latest version of the list, not the old one that you're pointing to before. That's a sort of default behavior to make sure you always get the latest version. However, there may be some instances when you want to point to an older version of the list, maybe for a course that's doing resits, that's not sitting this year, for example, and in which case the lecturer can go in and they'll have an interface when they're in the edit mode where they can go in and change where their list is pointing. So that's the piece of work we're just finishing off, and it allows people to effectively point their list at an older version rather than the most recent if you'd want to do that. It's just for a few people that do that. It's not a huge number, but it's just those people are supported as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Scott. So yeah, just tightening any loopholes around ways you might want to link to your lists from your learning management system. Something else that we've got since the last product update webinar. So there has long been an article on our support site about the LTI 1.3 integration. What we have added to this, and this is literally live today. So yeah, we have this article which tells you about what the integration is, why you should use it. But then if I scroll down here a little bit, Our head of customer success, Tim Hodson, has put together a series of videos sort of showing you exactly how this should look in your learning management system and covering all the scenarios that you might be using. So you can see there's one for Blackboard. There is one coming very soon for Moodle. There is one for Canvas. And then if we scroll down a little bit further, there is also a series of videos about what you can expect when you come to do your rollover with your learning management system, and advice on what to do if you are only now implementing LTI 1.3 and you are transitioning away from 1.1. So when we did this webinar earlier today for Europe, the group asked if we could, sorry, let's just get back to the right slides. The group asked if we could actually drop a link directly to that article in the chat. So I'm just going to do that now. So if you do want to take the time to have a look at those videos and how they relate to your particular learning management system, then there is the link that you will need. So I think that's all we have to say about LTI 1.3. But obviously, if there are questions, drop them in the chat, or you can save them to the end and we'll deal with them in one go. The next thing we wanted to talk about was upcoming releases. So, you know, what are you expecting from us in the next few weeks? What are our development team currently working on? And there are several things here, some of which we've already mentioned, but there has been some progress. And there's a new addition here as well. So the add resource work.
Just a quick comment come up before you go on to that, David. There's a quick question from Julie Cole for a rollover video for Brightspace.
Okay.
Is that something we're...
So, well, I know Julie is from Langara and they use Brightspace. To my knowledge, Julie, we don't have access to a Brightspace test environment at the moment. I think, as ever, with LTI questions, best advice is to raise a support ticket, because the internal experts within our company would be the consulting team. So for those who don't know them, Tim Hodson and Rich Tattersall, and they would definitely be better placed than myself to actually give you an answer as to the behaviour you should be expecting. So yeah, I think that's the most honest answer I can give. So yeah. With regards to upcoming releases, so again, we've mentioned this on previous product update webinars, this idea of the add resource button. And as you'll know, at the moment, when a user clicks on that, they can add from their own bookmarks, or they can search beyond that, and they can look through an integration with Nielsen book data and pull through results from there. A feature a lot of people have asked us for over the last couple of years is they've told us that at the point when a user starts searching from that add resource feature, they would actually like to see results from their own discovery layer. Excuse me. So yeah, as I said, we've mentioned this in previous months. We're currently working on doing this. Initial integrations will be with EDS, Primo, and OCLC WorldCat. Yeah, there's been progress since we last spoke. We have been testing with plugging in some institutional settings into some of our own test environments, because we want to check that behavior, you know, in our own safe environment before we actually begin to switch it on for universities and ask them to do some beta testing. As part of this, so the services team have passed on contact details to the product team of people that we think would be good contacts to reach out to and test this. As we get closer to making this live, if it is something you are interested in implementing, we will be needing some information from you. So sort of API keys for your Primo instance or EDS or whatever, so that we can plug those into your tenancy settings. What I will say is that a lot of people have asked about this over the last couple of months when we've been doing support calls, and it really does seem to be very well received. A lot of people are quite on board with this. So yeah, it's still progressing behind the scenes. Hopefully we'll have more to tell you again next month. The second point on here relates specifically to people that are using OCLC WorldCat. And I know that we have at least one institution on this call who that applies to. So at the moment in the reviews area, you will know that obviously for reviews, you're looking through, you're selecting items that you're interested in. What we are looking at implementing for WorldCat users is the ability to select an item that you want to buy, so it appears on a list, you're doing the review, you see something that you would like to purchase. We are looking to give you the ability to add that directly to the ordering platform within OCLC WorldCat. So, you don't have to copy and paste the details. We have an API integration with WorldCat. And again, that's currently in the process of being built. Scott, I think you told me there would be a working prototype in about a month's time.
Yeah, we think so. We're just waiting for OCLC. Have got to do a little bit of work on their side, and they're going to be releasing the bits of technology, the APIs that we use to us in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll start building out our test, and we will probably have, within a month, we will have certainly a clickable demo, so that you'll be able to show it, David, to people. People can have a look at how it will work, and then it's just doing all the plumbing then, which is one of those things that you're never quite sure how long it'll take. But in the next couple of weeks, we'll get our hands on it, and we'll make sure we know exactly what it's going to look like, and then we can share those clickable demos with you.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. And then again, this is one we've mentioned before, but so some institutions have told us they would like the importances which are attached to individual list items to be a mandatory thing when people are building lists, because obviously that helps the students. It also helps yourselves when lists are sent for review. Again, it will be optional. You don't have to make them mandatory if you don't want to. But that's something we're still working on. It's now looking like it will probably be July before that is delivered. One of the things that we did at our recent Insight conference in the UK, we actually produced some mock-ups of how we thought that could be implemented. And so we asked delegates to say, okay, well, if you're interested in this feature, how do you think we should be taking this forward? So we got some direct feedback from delegates to tell us exactly how they think that should look. So yeah, again, it's looking like it's going to be July, but that is still in the pipeline. And of course, alongside all of this, we've got our continuous improvement work. So, there's always little fixes going on here and there. There is some more accessibility work, which we'll be doing under the hood to make Talis Aspire more, accessible with screen readers and what have you. So obviously, as and when things fall out of that, we will be announcing them during these sessions. My apologies, it clicked out of the slide. Let's try that again. Okay, so moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is reviews discovery work. So again, this is something that the product team are working on at the moment. In fact, it is happening right now. So what these are direct calls between the product team and libraries that are using Talis Aspire, specifically around the topic of reviews, with a view to looking to build a new sort of sleeker, more efficient reviews interface later this year. So we have lined up calls with, it's about 20 institutions who are using Talis Aspire, some in the UK, some in Australia, and we're speaking to at least one in Canada. I think we've got 6 of these interviews booked for this week. So some of them have already happened, but the plan is to speak to 20 institutions over the next 3 weeks or so. Once all of those conversations are complete, we'll be pulling together all the results in mid-June and sort of factoring those into how we're planning on developing reviews going forwards. There might be a second round of interviews later in the year. So I think shorter ones, just looking at sort of UX, and how do you think you've told us the features you want, how do you want the interface to look, so there might still be some further conversations around that. I think the takeaway from all of this is we're getting it right rather than rushing it. So yes, we could probably put something in front of you much more quickly, but obviously whatever we build, we want it to be useful for you, something that's actually going to be relevant and is going to help you in your workflows. So we're going to make sure we get this right so that when the new interface is released, it's going to be something that's going to be particularly helpful to you. So as you can probably imagine, we will be returning to this topic again in future months on these webinars. And the final thing that was on the agenda before we throw it open to questions is an update on the Google Analytics work we are doing. So again, some of you might remember that we have said in previous product update webinars that currently all of you have a Google Analytics property attached to your Talis Aspire setup. We are using Universal Analytics, which is Google's legacy product, if you like. They are switching that off at the end of June. That is being discontinued. So everyone is being moved over to Google Analytics 4. We have already set up properties for all of you. Those are currently gathering statistics. So what we're trying to do with that is make sure that you don't lose any sort of analytical information for those of you who use this to produce reports or whatever. There's a couple of bits of progress on this. We have confirmed a webinar this week, which will be taking place. Now that time there, 2 p.m. is UK time. So this is a webinar we will be running in conjunction with a guy called James Fisher from Leeds Beckett University here in the UK. Leeds Beckett have been using GA4 with various systems within the university for quite some time. So we've given Leeds Beckett early access to their Google Analytics 4 setup so that they can have a play with it. They can look at building dashboards, seeing where the differences are between your current setups, you know, what can be recreated, what might need to be done differently. We will be holding a webinar with James on June the 7th. So as I say, 2 p.m. UK time. If you want to attend that, it might work for some of you with the time difference. You're quite welcome to register, and you can do that now at talis.com/events. Again, if you're not able to attend, just register anyway, and we will send you a link to the recording afterwards. While we're also talking about Google Analytics, some of you might remember that a few weeks back, we did a service announcement, which I believe was started with the word action. And what we did with that service announcement was shared with you all a link to a Microsoft Office form. And the purpose of the form was to get details from each university on who would need access to Google Analytics going forward. So when we move to GA4, we're seeing this as a chance to review who actually needs access and who do we need to that account. We've had 64 responses to that as of just before I logged into this webinar. We're working with just over 100 institutions, so that tells us that not everybody has completed that form yet. So if you haven't completed the form that we've set up for that, and what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to paste the link in the chat. It takes about 5 minutes. Can I just ask you, if your institution hasn't yet completed that form, if you can just get one person from your institution to fill out the details of who will need access to your Google Analytics 4 setup when it's being created. If you haven't done it in the next couple of weeks, I imagine we will be giving you a nudge. But yeah, we'd like to give you the chance to do it yourselves first. And there was one other thing I mentioned on the slides at the beginning. So just to announce that we've got some new team members working on Talis Aspire now. So added to the product team, so working with Scott, we have Kate Broadfield, who is originally from the US, but is now living in the UK. She has joined us as a product manager. If you've been on any of the reviews discovery calls this week, you might have met her already because she's been sitting in on those. But yeah, that's a name you should see popping up over the next few months as you engage with us and work with the product team. And we've also added 2 new developers to the Talis Aspire development team, which obviously just means that every time something comes in and we're working on a new feature or a bug fix or whatever it might be, we can go that little bit faster because we've got 2 new members actively working with the code and maintaining it. Just run through upcoming webinars and reminders of how to keep up to date. And then if you've got any questions, do drop them in the end in the chat, and we will look at those at the end. But this will just give you a couple of minutes to think about what you might want to ask. So yeah, we've got a couple of upcoming webinars. We've got the Google Analytics 4 session, which I mentioned a moment ago, which is happening on June the 7th. We also have a community webinar happening on July the 12th. So you can see the title on the screen there. It's called Climbing the Mountain. Just to give you a bit of background on what that's about. So at our recent Insight conference, one of the papers from the user group was from a lady called Hazel Rotherer at Oxford Brookes. And it was all about how they sort of revamped the way that they engage with their teaching staff after COVID. It was very well received, and we are always getting questions from universities, how do I engage my academics, or how do I engage my faculty? What's a good way of promoting the system to them and getting them on board? So Hazel will be delivering that talk again via a webinar for us on that date. And again, you can register for that and attend or get the recording afterwards. What I would also say, actually, while I've mentioned talking about Insight there, we did video a number of the presentations at the Insight event, which took place here in the UK last month. They will be available on the Technology from Sage website by the end of this week. And when the next Talis Aspire newsletter goes out next week, there will be a link. So if you wanted to view any of those, some of them are from our users, some of them are from guest speakers we had, then they will be available to you. With regards to the next product update, we should be doing one for the end of June, so there should be another one next month. We're just finalising the date at the moment because there are a couple of other webinars happening in other parts of the business, and we are just working out when will be the best time for us to deliver that. But obviously, as soon as that's decided, that will be put on the events page, and we'll be sharing links through newsletters and service announcements. And your usual reminder of how you can stay in touch with us. So we have a monthly Talis Aspire newsletter, which goes out to subscribers. If you don't think you're getting that, just raise a support ticket and we can ask the marketing team to add you to the list. As I say, the next one is going out next week and will contain links to those Insight presentations and a few other useful things to know as well. We do have the Talis blog, which is available at the link on screen there, and that will tell you about things we're working on, interesting case studies we've come across, basically anything we think will be of interest to our user community. You can register for all of our future webinars at talis.com/events, and you can also view all of the webinar recordings that we make on our support site, which is where you will also find details about product updates, release information, and anything to help you use the system. I did say there would be time for questions at the end, so we'll just monitor the chat box for a couple of minutes. Is there anything that anyone would like to ask? Okay, so question, have you received any feedback from other Moodle institutions about the use of LTI 1.3? I think my honest answer to that, so to give you a bit of background, I know that the rollover situation is more complicated in Canada. That's something that's come through very clearly on discussions with you during support calls. Here in the UK, we're just entering what I would call the rollover season, which is when lots of universities roll over their lists, roll over their VLEs. We've had about half a dozen universities roll over so far this year, and to my knowledge they've all been either Blackboard or Canvas, which I think is just luck. That's just how it's fallen out. I don't think anyone with Moodle has actually rolled over yet and given us any feedback. Was there anything in particular you wanted to ask about? And while I'm waiting for a response to that in the chat, there is a question from Julie. Any new staff hired in North America? So Julie, what I can tell you is that we have been interviewing this week for a new consultant based in North America. And we're hoping to make an offer to one of the candidates by the end of the week. And you'll understand that I really cannot say any more than that at this point. CJ's just expanded on his Moodle question. The issue of the launch container not remaining on the default when selecting content. Scott, do you know anything about that, or is that something we would need to back to the consulting team?
I think we'll need to back that back. I'm not 100% sure what the issue is in Moodle. It might be something that Tim knows straight away what we're talking about, but it's not something that. Let's see if the consultant team have got eyes on that, because we have got a Moodle instance, haven't we, that we've been testing on.
We do, yeah, and that will be in the videos. CJ, I think I recall that you raised a ticket on this, although I haven't actually dealt with it myself. Let me review that. Let me have a chat with the consulting team, and we will get back to you. Is again probably the best answer I can give right now. Okay, were there any other questions from anyone? Just wondering how other institutions have dealt with that. As I say, honestly, CJ, I don't know at this point. If you ask me again in 6 weeks' time, when some of those who are actually using 1.3 with Moodle have rolled over in the UK, there's probably more to tell you. But yeah, I will check that with the consulting team, and we'll look to get for them to give you a response tomorrow. Okay, I am not seeing any more questions coming in, so hopefully everyone feels that their questions have been answered. Okay, well, thanks everyone. Hopefully you have found this useful. As I say, as soon as we've confirmed a date for next month's product update, we will confirm it with you and advertise it through the usual channels. In the meantime, do keep talking to us through support tickets. Obviously, as soon as we've hired someone in North America, we will be telling you all about it through service announcements and newsletters and what have you. And yeah, look forward to speaking to you all again next month. So thanks for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.